Cigar connoisseurs are already raving about this exquisite cigar, which pays homage to Christopher Columbus's discovery of tobacco during his expedition of the New World. This medium to full-bodied cigar shows off the kind of exquisite construction that is expected by master blender A.J. Fernandez. This gorgeous box-press cigar features a dark, delicious chocolate Nicaraguan wrapper that houses a blend of Ometepe, Condega, and Esteli filler that is bound with a jalapa binder. Once lit, the perfectly balanced and refined New World gives off a beautiful billow of smoke and hits you with immediate spice and citrus flavors. As you begin to lose yourself in the rich aromas of the New World, the flavors become more complex even, and begin to express hints of hazelnut and coffee. New World is a first-time collaboration between A.J. Fernandez and his father Ismael Fernandez, which really makes the cigar stand out in the A.J. Fernandez line. To commemorate this union of father and son, A.J. Fernandez is offering you this masterpiece at around an MSRP of $6, which is unheard of for a cigar of this caliber. A.J. Fernandez invites you to embark on the journey and smoke what he guarantees to be one of the most talked about cigars of this year, the New World. And I tell you what, we all smoked the New World cigar and from A.J. Fernandez, and I really, really like this cigar. You can go back and listen to a previous episode where we're all smoking it. I think it was the one we were on Paul Joyle's Grotto. I smoked it on Paul Joyle's Grotto, I believe.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I mean, I know I had it here in North Carolina. For a $6 cigar. I mean,
yeah.
That's probably, you can look at that as a deterrent. I hate to say it, I know that, but the only reason is because it smokes like you would never know it's a $6 cigar. It's a fantastic cigar. And I think, we talked about it. I think we're already seen it. It's going to be a big, big seller for A.J. Fernandez.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And I think we should welcome them, as a Stogie Geek sponsor.
Yes,
they're our new sponsor this week. So
thank you for A.J. Fernandez.
Yeah, and you'll be hearing a lot more about A.J. Fernandez in the upcoming episodes. We're going to have some contests and things like that.
We're going to have contests, and you're going to hear Will and I talking a lot more about A.J. Fernandez cigars as we have some to review. So I'm very excited about that. So.
Yeah, I mean, they started out with San Latano 4 years ago, and they've really made an impact, especially in the brick and mortars over the last 4 years.
And I tell you what, I have to agree. I like the New World a lot. I really do. Yes. I spoke highly of it when we had it on the show, and I was excited when they signed on as a sponsor. So.
Yep.
So what are we talking about in this segment, Will?
Well, we kind of talked a little bit of a theme. We started out with Glenn Case earlier, and we talked about some of his samplers. And then we talked about your experience with the Avo sampler, going through it. And I talked about the Pudgy Monster sampler. So, I figured let's kind of look at some different samplers that you could put together. With the holidays approaching, samplers could be something that very much appeals to the Stogie Geek and all of us. You don't necessarily have to go out and get a sampler pack. You can go to your brick and mortar, and, you can work with them, and you can find something that really meets your liking. There's different ways we can look at slicing and dicing a sampler pack. You can go and you can do for different profiles. You can come up with one for the beginner. You can come up with one for the regular smoker. You can come up with one for the connoisseur. As Glenn taught, there could be brand specific ones where you get like a sampling across the brand. Or what Glenn did is when he talked about that earlier, he came up with a bold sampler, like a spicy sampler, and kind of a milder sampler, and kind of tailored his line at a more granular level. So, samplers are just, a great thing. And I have one, for example, here. Could people see it in the camera?
Yeah, that's a San Latano.
Yeah, so this is something we'll be raffling off. It's actually a sampler from A.J. Fernandez Cigars. And what I love about this is 5 cigars you get in the pack. You get a San Latano Oval Connecticut. So you get not necessarily a mild cigar, but something you get for that maybe someone likes the Connecticut.
Oh, Will froze. To talk about
that new one.
Oh, sorry, Will, you're breaking up there. The San Latano Connecticut, I think in the smaller sizes, is something that our listeners should try. I think the San Latano the Bull, especially in the torpedo size, is something that I like. In the San Latano Oval, that small petite Corona is good. I think the New World is a fantastic blend that works in all the different sizes. What's nice is you can buy that sampler and kind of try and see what you like. So that's great.
It's like I said, you get a nice representation across the brands with AJ Fernandez. Especially that Bull, which I think is kind of a more fuller, robust cigar that kind of fits in with the profile. So it's like I said, they put a nice sampler together with that. And one thing, like I said, is in terms of building samplers, you can go to, like I said, maybe if you know someone who you're buying a gift for, and they're a Padron fan, or they're a Fuente fan. Great thing is and you're shopping for someone, you go into that store and you can put together like a custom sampler. There's no reason why you have to go look for something that's prepackaged already, although there's some very good ones.
I agree. Along the lines of sampler packs, before I go into my thoughts on sampler packs, I wanted to talk a little bit about our pairing, Will.
Okay. We didn't get to that, actually.
We didn't talk about our pairing, and this one says it's Scotland's smallest distillery. And I'm going to struggle with the pronunciation here. It's a Edrador. This is a single malt Scotch whiskey. Oh, I'm going to hold it up over here. Edrador. It's a 10-year. It's a Highland. Now, typically Highlands are associated with a very kind of light flavor profile. They're not very robust. They're not very overpowering. Highlands tend to pair very well with cigars because they don't often overpower the cigar in the flavor department. For this to be a 10-year, I was very, very impressed with how smooth it was. In the flavor department, sometimes Highlands for me are almost too light. They're almost like the Ecuadorian Connecticut of Scotch, and don't have enough body to even really have the flavors to pair well with a cigar. This one is not in this category. This is a Highland that has a lot of body, a little bit of kind of strength, a little bit of punch to it, but it's extremely smooth, very flavorful for a 10-year. This bottle is only $50, and Stogie Santa recommended it to me yesterday, and you can see we've been sharing it. Well, I drank a lot of it, but we've been sharing it as well. Mr. Jack Daniel in our previous show, who appeared with us in a previous segment of the Stogie Geek Show, as well as Glenn Case, shared some of this. They were both very, very impressed with this Scotch. I really like it. For $50, I'm really finding, Will, that kind of similar to cigars, you don't have to spend a lot of money to get a lot of value and a lot of enjoyment out of spirits in subsequently cigars. I'm loving this Scotch for $50 a bottle. It's great. It's not something you would mix in a cocktail. This is something you drink neat, maybe with a splash of water, maybe a 1 cube kind of thing. I really like it. It's paired well with every cigar. I paired this with the Tatuaje Monster series. I paired it earlier with the Christoph GC Signature series that I smoked, and it went really well with both. And those are two very different cigars. So I highly recommend this if you can find this Edrador Highland single malt Scotch whiskey. Has the Stogie Geek stamp of approval, in my opinion.
When I get up there in a couple weeks, I want to definitely give that a whirl with a couple pairings. I'm real curious on that.
Yeah, it's very good. Now back to samplers. Your local shops, at least. Will and I, was funny. We were talking about the local shops here in Rhode Island, and we're very lucky to have so many local shops in a small geographic area here in Rhode Island. And I want to say that the majority of the local shops, at least here in Rhode Island, I don't know if it's like that where you are, Will, or where our listeners are, around the holidays. And to me, the holidays start right after Halloween. So like the day after tomorrow, holiday season is in full effect. My wife has already started Christmas shopping, put it that way. We don't even get through Halloween before we start Christmas shopping. And the local shops will start to carry a lot more samplers, or at least put out the samplers that they have. And there are samplers from almost all the cigar manufacturers. They'll hit the shelves. Of course, you can always order them online, but I think the local shops tend to focus on those during the holiday season. As if you don't know what to get the cigar smoker, getting them a sampler pack that's a little, lesser in price is a safe way to go. The manufacturers that come to mind that make fantastic sampler packs, I'll go through them, Will, and I'll go through one, and then I'll let you kind of go.
Okay.
For me, Padron is the first in my mind that sticks out with their 1926 and 1964 sampler packs in both Maduro and natural. As Glenn Case said very early on in the show, like, you can't go wrong with a Padron. And those sampler packs that come in 26, natural Maduro, 1964, natural or Maduro, you can't go wrong, in my opinion. That's like my, I hate to choose favorites, but that's my number one choice.
And that's like I said, when you're actually going with a like you mentioned, as far as I just lost my train of thought. That's a safe one. No one's going to be disappointed getting a Padron sampler pack.
Mm. No,
One that I've always kind of liked, and it's not necessarily, I'm not going to say it's a connoisseur one by any means, but it's kind of one that's been out there for a while, is that CAO World Sampler Pack. That it comes with 4 cigars. They still make it. This is a pack that goes back well before General acquired them, and it's got 4 classic CAO brands in them. It's got the 3 kind of original world blends, so to speak. It's got the America, the Brasilia, and the Italia, and then it's got the CAO Criollo. What I like about that is they charge you for 3 cigars instead of 4. And they're all 4 really different cigars. And in my opinion, those CAO blends are solid. Some may disagree with me. I don't think those blends have lost a beat since General's got them either. And it's just a real affordable one. I would never get disappointed getting one of those.
Along the lines of sampler packs, if I had to pick my number 2. All right, well, let's go to, in typical Stogie Geeks fashion, let's go to one that's not readily available, that kind of sticks out of my mind, and you kind of had it on your list, Will, one for kind of like the new cigar smoker, like a kind of a milder kind of sample pack.
Right.
Cusano used to make a sampler pack that included like a full line sampler from some of the older Cusano blends. I think before they were acquired by Davidoff, is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So that includes the, Cusano 18 in both the Connecticut and the, what do they call the other wrapper in the Cusano line? It's darker than a Connecticut. I can't think of what it is.
I'm drawing a blank too on it.
Their natural wrapper. It had that one that tastes like charred meat in it that I have a couple of as well that I can't think of. It had the other Cusano. It's like an 1894 Torpedo, something like that. It had a bunch of Cusano in it. I smoked through that sampler, dude, and I was really impressed. And that sampler had some age on it. If you can still find those sampler packs, I mean, all the more power to you. Just awesome. Another one along those lines that had a sampler pack, I found them online. They never resurfaced. And I'll get back to sampler packs that you can actually buy today, but these are just some of the ones that stick out of my mind in the past. La Aurora made a sampler pack, Will, and it was their Preferido line in the Maduro. And it was every different size of Preferido Maduro it was like, I don't, number 1 through number 5 or whatever it was. It was all of those perfecto sized preferitos, starting from small, going all the way up to the largest. It was 4 or 5 cigars in that pack, and I had picked one up that was, you know how La Aurora gives you that little card inside their
Yep.
boxes? I had picked one up that was like boxed, and it had like 3 or 4 years of age from the box date. And I smoked through 3 or 4 of those and was completely blown away. I swear they were almost all bordering on or the equivalent of an Oasis rating from that pack. I gave my last one to Stokey Santa. Talk about cigar brotherhood, right? I wanted to impress. I was determined to impress Stokey Santa, so I gave him one of the ones from that sample pack, and he said, and it's on record for this show. He said it's one of the best cigars that he's ever smoked from that sample
Wow.
pack, and that's the only reason I bring it up is how special that Preferido blend was, especially in that sample pack. So there are some sample packs that are just out of this world. And those are special ones, and I hate to talk about ones that aren't readily available. Some other ones that are, I'll mention one that's more readily available, bring us back down to planet Earth. Fuente releases their holiday sampler every year, right? Comes with like 2 Hemingway Cameroons, 2 Añejo blends that are usually like a Churchill type size. Comes with 2 Opus X, and 2 of the like regular Fuente, I forget what they call it, lines, but they have that Fuente holiday sampler pack. They've released one every year. That's a great gift as well. I highly recommend that. Those are always readily available, always available around the holiday time. So that's probably tops on my list as far as I think it goes as far as ones that are always available. Padron. Right after that would be Tatuaje. I
Yep.
mean, sorry, Fuente.
Puente, yeah.
Yeah, Fuente. What about your list, Will?
Well,
Could
there
you
was an
could you rank
interesting
them?
one
I
that,
know it's hard.
again, I'm kind of looking at, the idea of a sampler pack. You want to always kind of gear it for a profile. One that just came out this year, it's by E.P. Carrillo, came out with one. It's called the Tuxedo.
Hmm.
And I mention it because it's a sampler across the E.P. Carrillo lines in the 60 ring gauges. Now, maybe a lot of our listeners don't like the 60 ring gauges, but I guarantee you they know someone who do like them.
Yep.
And they may not be necessarily the biggest cigar smoker, but they like those big ring gauges. This was a really nice cross section across the portfolio of EP Carrillo. It came with a 6x6, a 6.25x60 of the core line. It came with a 6x60 of the New Wave Connecticut, and it came with a 6x60 of the Inch Natural. And they've also put 2 new line extensions into it this year. They put the new Cardinal 60, which is a 6.25x60, and they put the new East Stunner 60, which is a 6x60. So again, something that there's probably we all know someone. They're not necessarily the Stogie geek, but they like those big ring gauges. $40. You can't beat it. It comes in a nice slide top box, cedar box to come in. I thought it was a really good the good value there.
Awesome. Let's see. Ashton makes a sampler pack that's really good. That's another one that comes to mind. It's got some VSG in there and some of their other lines as well. I'm kind of envisioning the table at Mr. J Savannah Smoke Shop around the holiday times, and they're just like jam packed with sampler packs, which is just awesome. And Ashton is definitely another one that you can't go wrong with. They make such like cigars that appeal to such a wide audience that if you're kind of struggling with what to get the cigar smoker in your life, they've got ones that have a heritage, they have a VSG, and a couple other ones from Ashton that are really good as well. In terms of hard to find kind of sampler packs, I had that Drew Estate Liga Privada T52 sample pack, which is kind of hard to find. but had an Oasis level Toro inside that
Oh,
pack
yeah.
that I
It's
talked
got
about on the show recently, and that one certainly comes to mind as well.
yeah, it's got one of each of the 5 sizes on it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Another sampler company that does a great job with samplers, and we actually talked about it with Havana Cigar Club for their dinner they have coming up. Oliva's sampler packs,
Yes.
and I love what they do. Typically, what they do with their sampler packs is you get something that you normally can't get. So I know the one they're doing for the dinner
Hmm.
coming up. It's got 5 cigars. 4 of them are from existing Oliva blends, and I don't know which they are because they've done different versions of them. But they're typically things you can't get, but they're 4 blends. Usually they do one from like the Series V, the Series G, master blends, and then they typically throw in one of their prototypes that something that they call a prototype. It's something they're working on, but it's probably something that is very good, and again gives you something a little different in terms of that. I can think of another sampler pack which is really cool. We were talking about Avo. And Avo makes something called the Quartet, which came out last year. And I think Paul, I know I got one of these when I was up in Rhode Island. What I love about that cigar is pack is it's 4 cigars. 2 of them are tried and true Avo blends, they're the Heritage and the Signature. They have the Avo Lounge cigar, which is only sold at Avo Lounges. It's in a Robusto format, which you can't get in the Avo Lounge. So again, you get that nice cigar, and then you get also a mystery cigar called the AU14, which is something they're looking for feedback on. So nice sampler pack. Again, if you want something across the Avo lines, kind of goes the full gamut from the milder cigars to the more fuller heritage in there.
There are just so many sampler packs that we could talk about. Um, I'm kind of struggling with where to go next, Will.
Well, let me ask you a question. If you had a pick right now, if you were a Tatuaje, someone you wanted to get a sampler of Tatuajes, and you could pick 5 Tatuajes to put in that pack. I mean, what would you pick?
Uh,
And
I'm gonna
it could be anything you want.
I'm gonna kind of change that a little bit and say that the Tatuaje Lancero sampler pack would be my choice. If someone is a Tatuaje fan or even a cigar fan, that Lancero pack to me is my pick for Tatuaje sampler, hands
You
down.
can't, you can't argue it.
It was a lot of fun to smoke. Absolutely.
I mean, if I was doing it right, very easy. I just talked about the Noelis Reserva. I'd put that in there.
Mm-hmm.
I'd put the Tatuaje Avion 13 in that one.
Mm.
I would put the Cabaguan Lancero in that one. I would probably think out of the box there, and you know what? I would put in maybe one Monster if I can do it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Frank, but maybe it's like a Mummy or something in there. And then I'd also put a Black Label, in maybe a Petite Lancero in there. 5 ones you really can't go wrong with, and would probably satisfy most Tatuaje fans.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree. What else for sampler packs, Will?
Um, in terms of sampler packs as well, sometimes there's things that you can get, not necessarily all cigars. Um, Another one that comes to mind, and I loved the sampler pack when it came out, is CAO had a gift set that included some of the Brasilia and the Italia cigars, but they also had bags of coffee in there. There was a Brazilian roast coffee, and there was an Italian roast coffee, which I thought was just a great thing, because pairing coffee with cigars. And now we know Roma Craft also announced with their Intemperance line, they're going to be coming out with they're going to be putting the Breach of the Peace and the Brotherly Kindness and the Intemperance blends packaged with brands of their own branded coffee that they're getting from a company called Twin Engine. So it doesn't necessarily have to be all cigars. I've seen Altadas do things where they put a cutter in there, the little Monte Cristo packs, and they put a nice cutter in there as well.
Yeah, and LFD has those sampler packs that I talked about on the tent sale that Mr. J. Savannah had, where they have a cutter and a lighter and 3 different LFD cigars. And those
Yeah,
are older, and
yeah.
you can find newer incarnations of those, but those older ones definitely stick out in my mind.
No, exactly. So again, even if it's for cigar enthusiasts, sometimes it's. I know some of them have had some very nice accessories in there that you can get.
Absolutely. Very cool. Well, Will, I think that rounds out this edition of the Stogie Geek Show.
Yes, we did.
Do we have no contests this week? But look for
We're
some
all caught up. We'll start probably the AJ Fernandez contest
next week
in a week or so.
Okay.
So I'm kind of going to finalize that. It appears it's going to be some AJ Fernandez trivia we're going to do. So we'll be raffling off some 5-packs, and plenty of folks will get in on that.
Very cool. Well, thanks everyone for listening to this edition of the Stogie Geek Show. I want to go back to Glenn Case's sentiments about joining your CRA and becoming an activist to support our rights as cigar smokers. So make sure you do that. And we'll see everyone next week on the Stogie Geek Show. Thanks for listening.